Zimbabwe has at least 1.5 million people with HIV/AIDS. Most of them are being kept alive by antiretroviral drugs donated by international agencies. But some of these life-saving medicines are being siphoned out of Zimbabwe's healthcare system and sold on the black market for use as narcotics. So who is responsible? Reporter Kasim John went undercover to find out.
Only a decade ago, AIDS was being called Africa's plague. Here in Zimbabwe, nearly 200,000 people were dying each year. Finally, the outside world agreed to act and began donating vast quantities of antiretroviral drugs to fight HIV. The drugs worked. Within a few years, the death rate had fallen by 2/3. Today, millions of Zimbabweans are being kept alive by some of the world's most expensive and sophisticated drugs. Which is what makes this so shocking. I have come to a ghetto in Harare. Here, ARVs are not the life-saving wonder drug. They are being mixed with marijuana and smoked as a cheap high. Some ARVs have been shown to activate similar receptors in the brain to LSD.
Some effects are terrible, but this is the fastest thing, doctor.
Fastest.
These men are breaking the law. Using ARVs in this way can get you 6 months in jail.
And you want to be a man who's to think is it as well.
My name is Kasim John. I'm a health reporter here in Zimbabwe. I wanted to believe the fight against HIV and AIDS in my country was a success story. So it's shocking to have just seen a group of young drug users grinding up ARV pills and smoking them.
Hey, stopping. Go slowly past it.
ARVs mixed with marijuana is just one recipe. Dry mouth, a combination of ARV pills and illegally imported cough mixture, is another. The phrase started jumping out at me every day on the streets of Harare.
Dry mouth!
These public taxis were branded with a dry mouth logo. This was clearly a street phenomenon on the rise. I had to find out more. How big was this problem and who was it affecting? Filming undercover was the only way to find out how the success story was going so wrong. This cough mixture contains codeine. It is illegal to sell in Zimbabwe, but easy to find when I asked for the dry mouth ingredients on the streets. In a car park nearby, I'm looking for the magic ingredient, ARVs. I'm beckoned over by two men in a truck. As I climb into the truck, one of them gives me 2 plastic bottles.
Maybe take out to the mama got to one day. Yeah.
For $20 US, I bought over 60 pills. ARVs are controlled drugs. Selling them in this way could land the dealers in prison for up to 2 years.
Inside this box are ARVs that we bought from the black market on the streets in Harare. This is amazing. These drugs are supposed to be under strict control, but you can easily get them on the streets now in Harare. This should not be happening at all.
The government claims any drug being sold on the streets are either counterfeit or come from another country. But I got a contact to check the serial numbers. He said these drugs came from inside the Zimbabwean health system. Why would someone take this to get high? I wanted to find a user who would help me understand. This is Harare suburb of Waterfalls. It used to be a good area, but since the economy collapsed, it's become cheap accommodation for many young unemployed people. This drug user is 28 years old. He has been using dry mouth for a year. He was abandoned by his parents at a young age and started doing drugs as a teenager.
Did you go to school?
Yes, I ended Form 4.
And how did it go? Did you pass?
I failed. I was looking for job, no job. To gare ngori soba fungwa zacho zine zingamire kufunga.
Users come here and pull what little money they have to buy ARVs. They used to smoke marijuana or get drunk. But dry mouth is the new poor man's drug. And twice a day, he downs a shot of cough mixture with ARVs, which keeps him high for most of the day.
How much does each cost?
1 pill.
1 pill, yeah.
30 cents.
30 cents. And the whole bottle?
The whole bottle, you can have it at $10. But beer, you want to spend some kind of $7, $8 to get drunk. But this one is cheap.
Yeah, in this community where you stay, how many people knows that you are
plenty.
There are many like him. Unofficial estimates say around 85% of Zimbabwe's population is unemployed. Nearly all ARVs here have been given by foreign donors on the condition they are freely available to all Zimbabweans in need and are never sold for money. And they only give just enough for those that need them. So if some of these drugs are now being abused, someone else is missing out. This is Lengi Francisco. She is 38 years old. She has lived with HIV for nearly 8 years. What could have been a death sentence in Zimbabwe a decade ago can now be treated successfully with ARVs, which keep the virus under control. She goes to the hospital every month to get enough drugs for the following month. But last time she went to the clinic, something strange happened.
Handina kuvhurira ndiri ipapo. Mutaninga akafarwa. Ndakanoti ndasvika kunoku. Pandavhura rimwe gaba ranga rakasiudwa. Rimwe racho ranga rakavhurika.
We count the tablets together and discover they are only 18 and not 30, as they should have been.
Sei vari kumavhura mapiritsi iwayo?
Inini mafungira angu nekumbonzwa kwandinoita ndikuti ndikunzwa chinzi zviri kunzi mapiritsi mashoma. Saka vanoda kuedza kuti shiyanisa kuti mapiritsi aite sei akwane, asivo manje vasida kutibuditsira kuti mapiritsi mashoma. Ukasvika pakiriniki vanombokudza kuti chimbomirai mapiritsi asati auya, vanoti vanenge vachiverenga here kuti mapiritsi acho tingaite sei here.
The shortfall in Lengi's supply means this month she will go without tablets for nearly 2 weeks. I want to find out what this could mean for the health of a patient like Lengi. So I go to one of the country's best HIV treatment centers in Harare. Professor Rudy Luthi set up the Newlands Clinic. He first came here in 2003 to treat AIDS patients and has stayed ever since. He knows as well as anyone the dangers of missing doses.
Because HIV is stored away in many different cells which are long-living. The moment you stop a treatment, these cells start replicating the virus. The virus grows, and then the next dose comes, and then resistance emerges. You need to take your drugs religiously. In other words, if you stop a treatment or interrupt or take it every other day, it's bound to fail.
In a hotel in central Harare, a patients group called Citizens Health Watch are meeting to discuss their concerns about drug shortages. I want to show them what we found out about the abuse of ARVs. The head of the organization is Fungisai Due.
They say ARV gets high easily and fast, and is so cheap as compared to buying alcohol. But from what you've seen, how do you take it?
Where do they find these drugs? That's my first question. Where do they get them? It just basically raises suspicion, around our healthcare providers. The people that are responsible for the disbursement of those drugs, they cannot be clean as long as the drugs go, as long as we see some drugs in the streets which are not supposed to be there. And this just for me paints really a sad picture, a sad reality. There is something that is wrong in our health systems, something that needs to be investigated. Where are they getting the drugs?
In Africa, theft from public institutions is not unheard of. But these are some of the most precious drugs in the country and in short supply. The government claims that there is a clear paper trail for medicines and strong security. So, how could such important drugs fall out of the system so easily? Back in my newsroom, I turned my attention to the hospitals, but I was met with silence. Receptionists, nurses, managers, and doctors, none of them would talk to me. After weeks of trying, calling people, and meeting dead ends, I got a lucky break. A doctor agreed to talk.
Now I'm on my way to meet a doctor from a public health institute here in Harare. She has accepted to talk and she's going to tell us how ARVs are being stolen from hospitals and stored onto the black market. She says she doesn't want to be identified, so we've also accepted to hide the ID.
You know, the channels to get ARVs are wide. It just depends on who you know and how you can do it. If you're a nurse in the OI, a doctor in the OI, and the drugs are free, and what you just need is a prescription, and they are the one who writes the prescription. What the pharmacist just wants is a stamp and a hospital number, which you can just cook, because they are not going to enter that hospital number into a database system. So I can actually write a prescription using the same patient's name, using the same hospital number as many times as I would want in 2 days, in 3 days, and no one would even know that it's the same patient.
The situation that you're painting here shows that there must be an abuse of the system. Do you think the authorities don't know that this is what is happening and they're just turning a blind eye?
Everybody knows. The authorities know, but they pretend that they don't know, because mostly the people who are benefiting are those who are in the higher positions.
But personally, have you at one moment taken out these drugs for your personal gains, because you've also seen other people doing it?
My friend, the temptation is great, but who can desist from such a temptation? Because you make lots of money and you want to supplement from your meager income. I can't say an income, and I can't even say that it's a salary. Maybe it's an allowance.
Patients without ARVs in Harare can at least turn to the black market on the streets, but for sufferers living outside the capital, it's not so easy. I drove to Mondoro, 5 hours from Harare. This is Temba. He's already on the second line of ARV drugs. He had a break in treatment and the virus mutated.
Yeah, I know.
Temba's wife died from AIDS 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. The grave we are seeing here is Temba's wife. She died 2 years ago of AIDS. And Temba by then was not on medication. You can see even Temba is now fit. He's on line 2. ARV medication. But the problem is that the medication is hard to come by, and Temba has got to go from pillar to post looking for the medication, and it is very difficult for him living in a rural setup like this.
In the last month, he has started having problems finding these drugs.
Matambudziko wangu achitasana nawo kuti uwane mshonga wauri kunwa iko zvinezvi we-HIV wakakura zvakadii?
Yeah, ngoti mishonga wacho uri kunetsa kuwanikwa. Kuti kusemei kuzi ndakaenda ndikaushaiwa. Asi pama black market ndo pauri kuwanikwa.
All right.
Yeah.
We went back to Harare together to try to buy these drugs on the black market. I had made contact with a doctor who claimed he had access to ARVs. I had gone to see him a couple of times without filming. This time, I wore a hidden camera. If we showed his face, we fear he would be made a scapegoat for something we believe is a systematic problem. Later that evening, I came back to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Sure enough, the doctor had found the drugs.
How much did you? 2020. 2020.
Non to me.
End up to me. You're saying that you know a combination. It's a combination here. But no man is the one here. And it is. All right, thanks.
The next day, we go to another hospital in Harare. We film from a distance. I meet a man who says he can get ARVs from a male nurse inside the hospital. I give him $80 and he disappeared inside. 5 minutes later, he walks back out with a paper bag full of ARVs.
This is another one.
Back at Temba's house, we examined the drugs.
This was a fake medical card. It has got everything written here. Apparently, there's no name, no address. There's a signature there. The stamp is there as well, and it's written Wilkins Hospital in Harare.
It was clear that faking medical records was how these drugs were being taken from the health system. Fraud like this is strictly against the law. Like the dealers on the streets, the penalty is 2 years in jail. This trade seems so widespread. What does the government know about it? And how are they going to act? I had questions for the Minister of Health.
Minister, doctors are actually telling us they are the ones who are taking the drugs from the hospitals and selling them onto the black market. Have you received those reports too?
I'm shocked. I'm shocked because for a nurse or a doctor to then be getting large quantities of drugs and selling them, the system could be broken somewhere. We're not ruling it out completely. It can happen. But we're just saying we haven't caught them yet, if that is what they're doing. What you've seen on the ground is very important and something that can give us a lead to actually help the majority of Zimbabweans that are innocent that could be caught up in this mess.
I was pleased that the minister said he would start to look into our evidence, but surprised that this seemed to be the first time he had heard of the problem. Because I had seen how easily the crown jewels of Zimbabwe's health system are being stolen by those trusted to keep them safe. The street drug trade is just the most extreme consequence of this break of trust. A clear sign of how we have started taking these miracle drugs and the generosity of the outside world for granted.